Hey, welcome to 1140 The Bet Las Vegas. Adrian here on your NBA Finals preview show. And we're going to stay in the West Coast and head to the Bay right now as we welcome to the program Sam Esfandiari of the Warriors Light Years Pod. One time for Joe Lacob. All insider calls are presented by BetQL. Get access to data and insights the sportsbooks don't want you to see. Bet smarter and beat the books. Download your BetQL app or visit BetQL.com today. First and foremost, Sam, thank you for the time. And has Disney reached out to you guys for a Light Years Pod / Lightyear movie collab?
We're still waiting. I shot a message to them, said there could be some real synergy here, but these things take time.
No, honestly, with ABC covering the finals too and everything, it's a good collab. Where are you on the whole debate though about the fact that they did Toy Story 4 when Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending to the trilogy?
Honestly, I didn't see 3. I saw 1 and 2. I have not seen 3 yet, so I don't know if I can weigh in on this one. Maybe I need to pick that up. I have a small child now. At some point, I gotta get him into some of the classics that I grew up on. But
no, 100%.
To date, I have not.
No, 100%. Disney Plus is about to be your babysitter coming up. I promise you. And first and foremost, as we kick this off, and I told you before we started the interview, but I think I just need to make this aware because I don't want you to be like, what? He never told me. I've been blocked by Warriors World before. Is this okay for us to be talking?
You know what? First thing I'm going to do when I get off this call is hit up the group chat and see how he feels about you. I think we're okay.
No, well, and also, I'm from Cleveland, so like I told you before, it's like I'm going into the heart of Warriors Twitter. But I do have to ask you, man, throughout this run, or even before this run, just straight up, how do you feel about Monte Ellis? How has he impacted your life?
If it wasn't for Monte, I don't know if any of this happened. Now, I'm old enough to remember when there was a Monte versus Steph debate. It's funny to me. Gonna be honest, I was on the Steph side at the time, but most of my Warrior brethren were a little more loyal to Monte. He'd been there first. He was the bigger star at the time, so it is what it is.
Yeah, and I got some allegiance to Mr. Ellis, but you were on the right side of history, and it's funny me being from Cleveland. It was hilarious that we had this era and this rivalry, because both of our teams were in the dumps for so bad. I'm sure you bought in the $7 ticket in Oracle Arena to go to a game. I did the same thing. What's been your favorite part of this run, and also the community that you guys have built that's been amazing for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, the community has definitely been my favorite part of it. Just being able to connect with people who, let's be honest, Bay Area is big. Would I have connected with people who lived an hour and a half away in San Jose, me living up kind of towards the city? Would I have connected with them if it wasn't for the Warriors going from being a laughing stock to kind of the most relevant team in the Bay Area for the last decade? No. So that's been cool. But more than anything, it gets back to what you're saying. It's I grew up riding BART to go to Oakland A's and Golden State Warriors games, and both of those tickets cost me under $10. One of those tickets still cost me under $10. The other one, not so much.
We might be stealing your team here in Vegas. I don't feel good about it. The A's, I don't really feel good about. Honestly, I don't feel really good about the Raiders. But it is what it is. But back to the Warriors. You had to deal with the rivalry with Cleveland, and there's still some bitterness, obviously, on the Cleveland side. But in comparison to who is it? So it's Cleveland. I would assume Oklahoma City fans hate you guys. And then now having to deal with Boston fans. Out of those three, what's been the differences?
First off, Cleveland is the only rival. I take it back. Houston also should get thrown in there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Battles with the James Harden, Chris Paul Rockets, but nothing tops peak Cleveland because you have LeBron at the peak of his powers. Everyone thought Cleveland was going to rip off 3-4 titles when LeBron went home, and no one really saw the Warriors coming, including Warrior fans. I'm gonna be honest with you, just because I liked Steph more than Monte, I didn't think Steph was gonna reinvent the game of basketball. I didn't see that coming or anything. I just thought he was a better point guard. So nothing's ever going to touch it. Boston, to me, it's funny because Boston sports fans, they're obnoxious, like Patriots, Red Sox, like we all know that, and they're trying really hard to kind of create this rivalry. I don't know if you saw like the videos that you're seeing, like, I don't know, Barstool and stuff put out there and whatever it may be. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just kind of like, yeah, but, I don't really have bad blood with Jason Tatum. Like, I think he's a nice young player. It's like, it's funny because they really want Warriors fans to take the bait. And I just don't think Warrior fans feel that way about them. It's never going to be like it was with Cleveland, where you saw them every year for half a decade, or even the Houston Rockets, who were like the only team in the West who really tried to come at the Warriors and had some classic series with them or anything. Boston, they're bottom of the totem pole relative.
No, 100%. And also Barstool Sports, I don't know after this interview if we're ever going to get hired at the Ringer. I'm okay with that. I don't know about you. And in this series, or actually, hold on, because I know I'm all over the place and I apologize. I kind of want to get your take on how exhausting, or is it exhausting, having to have these conversations and kind of defend Steph Curry? Like, for example, the Steph Curry legacy talk, or even what's been evident to me in this series, and new report came out, he should be able to play for Game 4 here on Friday night. But just like, he's averaged over 30 points this series. Like, he's been dominating offensively. He's been the main fixture.
Not the problem.
Yeah, and but he's not the vocal point. Like, it's Draymond, or it's always something else, or he doesn't have any finals MVPs. Like, and I know it's exhausting because I've spent my whole life arguing about LeBron being better than Jordan. So from your perspective as a Warriors fan, like, how exhausting is it having to defend or talk about Steph and like making sure his respect and his credit is given?
I think you will relate to this. When you're dealing with a new opponent, you kind of assume they know what they're talking about, and then they remind you that they didn't watch anything the last decade. Like, you have like Cedric Maxwell saying the Warriors, they're tuxedo players. They don't like physicality. And like you see various people, national voices being like, well, Steph hasn't really played in big games. And I'm just sitting here going, like, did you not watch basketball the last decade? It's like when people would say, I guess with LeBron, where it's like, well, he's not clutch. And it's like 2018, you're sitting here at a certain point, you're like, I don't know where to even begin with this. Like, have you watched basketball the last decade? So it is definitely exhausting, because I kind of thought at a certain point people would just reach a, like, I don't like him, but at least I, tip my cap what he does type of thing. And like, the finals here are a reminder. It's like, oh, you guys like really tuned out everything that happened when your team wasn't playing.
No, 100%. Like, because they'll love to throw the 17 championships at your face, although it was the one in 2000 whatever, and then before that, like, it's been a minute for them. When we're talking about Boston specifically, and since we're kind of talking about some of the off-court things surrounding these finals and some of the antics when you bring up Cedric Maxwell. Yo, Draymond Green, some of this stuff at a certain point seems a tad unnecessary, but then on the flip side, and I guess we're biased because what do? We make podcasts, we talk about the game, we get paid to talk about the game, we make content, and it's a certain point of like, do you want Draymond Green and NBA players to give you the content and the insight? Like, do you want that or do you don't? With all this and people like complaining about he's not focusing on the game and he's doing a podcast, how dare he? Like, where do you stand on that whole storyline?
I'm just, I think you'll appreciate this, but it's like, I guess fans who are like, Draymond objectively was terrible in Game 3, and then first thing you see afterwards is like him smiling on YouTube. It's like, God damn it, that sort of thing, like where you're just kind of like, I don't want to deal with this right now, but it's like, dude, you do realize like players do stuff after the game, right? Like,
they have lives.
Would you prefer he, like fly cross country and do WCW like Dennis Rodman did? Like, ultimately, he talked on a Zoom call for 30 minutes. Like, what are we really getting mad about here for? So I reject the premise that like he's unfocused doing that, because it's like, all these players after the game, they're going to go to dinner with their families. They might go out. They're going to do something just to unwind, right? So it's just like the only difference is he's giving you something that you can watch on YouTube now.
No, 100%. And it's like, yo, before we had to like read a newspaper or watch Sports Center to get one quote, and now you get an actual NBA player giving you how he feels. And in terms of this series and going into the specifics of this, I just want to know now, with the Steph injury, like I said before, he should be okay, and Boston taking the 2-1 lead. Where are you at right now?
On the series, a lot of it depends on how healthy Steph is. We saw the play where Horford came up on him. Shams reported they're optimistic he's going to play game 4. It's the finals. Unless he's in a cast, he's going to play. But that doesn't mean he's not going to be limited. So I kind of want to see how he is. If that Horford fall never happened, I'd tell you, you know what? It's kind of going how I expected. I think they're kind of evenly matched. I kind of like the Warriors' chances to win game 4. And, maybe it even goes 7. It's going to be one of those back and forth type of matchups. But I'd be lying to you if, watching kind of that little, clearly he fell hard on his leg. And it's one of those things where until I see Steph moving and I see him moving like Steph, I'm going to be a little nervous.
Where'd you fall on the side real quick of like letting him play out those? I know it was only like 1 or 2 minutes, and then Steve Kerr finally called the timeout and said, "No, let's get the starters out of there." But do you think Steve should have took him out like right after that incident?
Honestly, I like that he let him play after it because it kind of like it did calm me down a little bit. It did make us feel like, okay, the last thing you want to see is like him limping to the back room, right? Because then you're like, uh-oh, So for him to play through it, it gives you some confidence that he'll be okay and that he is okay. And all the reports suggest he's okay. But, I just want to see how it looks because we've all banged something and it's felt fine, and then the next day you're like limping around a little bit.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where there's nothing that's gonna change the way I feel until the game starts and it looks normal.
One thing I do want to ask you in terms of offensively, because it was just a weird. There was certain points where I saw Golden State kind of be like Boston, where there were certain matchups where I know Boston went to they had Rob Williams out there, they had Al Horford out there, and in game 1, Steph went off because of that, and they kind of didn't attack any of those bigs. But a big portion of offense that wasn't there for me has kind of been Jordan Poole, which even in some of the games against Dallas has kind of fallen off. What's your just overall view of Jordan Poole? And like, he needs to step up, correct? Like, he needs to create this offense and help Steph out, right?
Literally was just talking about that. That's like my number one thing I want to see in game 4. Right now, like, look, we know, we've all seen like the numbers, how the Warriors are much better when Steph's on the court than when he's off the court. Shocking. You're better when your best player plays, right?
Yeah.
But the drop-off they've had this series in the no Steph minutes where Jordan Poole has to run the show has been awful. And, Poole's been pretty damn good all playoffs. Like, there's no other way around it. He looks like a rising star. He looks like a player who the Warriors could potentially build around, like, in the future, post-Steph years. And he's exciting. He's fun to watch. He's explosive. He's been bad in this series, and I don't know if they can beat Boston if he continues to stay bad. He doesn't need to put up like 30 like he was doing in some of the other ones, but he needs to give them something offensively because Boston's too good defensively for it just to be the one-man Steph show.
Yeah, no, 100% here on the NBA playoff preview, 1140 The Bet, Las Vegas. And one other question, too, before we get you out of here, and thank you so much for the time. Kevon Looney, like I just brought up, Boston went back to having Al Horford and Rob Williams to end the game and in big moments in Game 3. And not only has Kevon Looney been balling his ass off, but even in the paint, which Game 1 and 2, Boston wasn't getting those looks. Game 3, they attacked. They were in the paint. The scoring margin, I think it was like 52 to 36 or 26. It was a huge discrepancy. And I look at the box score. Kevon Looney only played 16 minutes and 49 seconds. Do you think it was just circumstantial of Steve Kerr going, yeah, let's go small. Let's ride this out small and see if we can pull this out? Or do you expect him to play a little bit more as the series progresses?
I think both of those are true. I think it was circumstantial. I think they were trying to they ignited the run going small. Like Boston was up 15, Warriors went small, they tied the game up. So it was working. And Looney's always kind of one of those guys where some games it's 30 minutes, some games it's 10 minutes. It's kind of like really matchup dependent. But yeah, I mean, he's been really good for them all playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if game 4, for example, they went the opposite way and they're like, yeah, Looney, we need you in there and we need you to like gobble up 15 rebounds because that's just the way it goes.
Two-part question to get you out of here. Number one,
okay,
who do you think is gonna win this series now that it's 2-1 Boston? And number two, more importantly, in terms of just being ignorant and the arrogance, like how big would winning this championship without KD and now giving the rest of the NBA no ammo to go at your fan base, how big would that be?
One, I'm sticking with my Warriors in 7. That was my pre-series pick. I'm not going to pivot off of it until you tell me Steph's not playing. And two, you're going to want to block me if that happens, to be honest. Not only winning one without KD, but doing it while the Brooklyn Nets are a complete and utter mess. Boston swept them in round 1. The Warriors take care of Boston and kind of just put that narrative to bed that, it's KD's ring. No, KD needed the Warriors more than the Warriors needed KD, is the way it's looking right now. And yeah,
Bars?
If you find Warriors fans insufferable now, you do not want to see what happens if they win this series.
Oh, boy. I'm not looking forward to your friend Andy's tweets. Speaking of your friend Andy, before we get you out of here, if you could just let everybody know where they can reach you on social media. Again, the Warriors Light Years podcast, where they can get that. Shout out whoever before we get you out of here.
Yeah, you can find you can find the Light Years Pod on anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Andy and I are doing a post show every game of this series. Obviously, there's only 4 left at most, on Spotify Live as well. You can hop on the app there and listen to us in live time, ask us questions, sort of like talk radio style. But yeah, subscribe. Light Years Podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen.
All right, we're doing the virtual handshake. Cleveland Cavaliers and Warriors Twitter coming together for 20 minutes, and we didn't end up yelling at each other. Sam, thank you so much.
I think we got to thank Boston for bringing us together. We can both acknowledge, we can unite in beating a common enemy here.
Not only that, but Barstool Sports. We'll leave it at that. That's how we'll end the interview. It's 11:40 The Bet. We'll be right back.